What is going on, YouTube land, all my watch collectors, all my watch followers? I wanted to do a video on a relatively newer Orient watch, the Orient Kamasu, reference FAA02001B9. Just remember, it's the Orient Kamasu. Don't worry about that long reference number. So back last fall, I did a video about what I thought was the best entry-level mechanical or automatic watch for new watch enthusiasts. And I came to the conclusion that the best bang for the buck at that time was the Orient Ray. And I still think the Orient Ray is a great watch. My second choice at that time would have been the Orient Mako USA 2 or Mako II USA. But now there's a watch that fits between those two price points that I think is absolutely the best value, best bang for your buck watch if you're looking for your first automatic watch. It is the Orient Kamasu. Let's take a closer look at it. Before we get into the video, let's do a quick wrist check. And today I am wearing the Breitling Super Ocean 42 with the blue bezel and blue dial. All right, so taking a closer look at the Orient Kamasu, the MSRP from Orient US website is $460. You should never ever pay anything near that for any one of the versions of these watches. Right now, Orient, even though they say the MSRP is $460, they've got it marked down to $280 on their website. That's still quite a bit higher than what you can get it for other places like on Amazon. Right now, the black on black version, black bezel, black dial version is $219. And I'll put a link below for that. Blue bezel, blue dial version is $250. The black bezel green dial is $279. And the black bezel and the ruby red dial is $240. All of those prices are the current prices on Amazon. I want to go through the specs here just really quickly, and then we'll test them with the caliper to see how close this copy is to the spec. The case diameter is 41.8 millimeters. The case width is listed at 12.8 millimeters, and then they're showing the lug to lug at 47 millimeters. This is the caliber F6922. It is a hacking hand winding movement with a 40-hour power reserve, and it does have a day and a date complication. So pretty good specs for a watch that you can buy for $219. The caliber F6922, I've seen different estimates on really how good of accuracy it has. I can tell you on this watch, I've had it for a couple of months now, and I'm probably gaining about 7 to 10 seconds a week, which is amazing for this watch. So really good quality for the price. It does have a sapphire crystal. It has a screw down crown and a screw down case back, which we'll get to here in just a minute. It is rated for 200 meters of water resistance. It is not a diver's 200 meters, but it would be perfectly fine to snorkel with, swim with, take a shower with, those kinds of things. I wouldn't use this for anything other than recreational diving. Maybe not anything even more than scuba diving. If you're doing anything more than that, you're probably wearing a dive computer anyway. But this will be perfectly fine for 99% of us who are wearing this in the water. The lug width is 22 millimeters. So let's grab the calipers and take a look and see what we show here. I'm showing 41.9. I'm showing width at 12.8. Let's check the lug to lug here. Never can get these calipers on there. I'm showing 47.3. All right, so when we look at the watch in and of itself, it's constructed very well. It has one flaw to it, which I will get to here in a little bit. I know people hate it when I keep wiping off the crystal there, the sapphire. I think I got all the smudges and dust off there. So the first thing I want to talk about is the bezel. It has a nice aluminum insert. The numbers are easy to read. It has a nice lume pip at 12 o'clock with the triangle. One thing I really do like about the Kamasu is it gives you the minutes all the way around. It doesn't stop at 15 or 20. And it gives you minute by minute after that. I think it gives it just a bit of a sportier look than some of the other dive watches that don't do that. For example, I'll just throw in here really quickly. Here's the Breitling Super Ocean 2. You can see it goes to 15 minute by minute, and then it goes 5 minutes after that. So I kind of like the look of the Kamasu with the minute by minute. The bezel has a nice action to it. I'm actually going to take my left glove off for this. It has a nice action to it. You can really, it gives you a nice feedback. It's for a $220 watch. The bezel action, the way it moves is really nice. There is some play in the bezel, without a doubt. But I think you have to expect that on and there I go smudging up the crystal again. You have to expect that on a $200 watch. So next I want to talk about the handset on this watch, and it is another reason I really, really like this watch. I think the handset is very nicely done. You get a sword minute hand with kind of a broad arrow, maybe not a broad arrow, but I'll call it a half broad arrow hour hand. And I love that the second hand has just that nice little red or orangish detail at the end of it. The minute hand does go all the way to the index, which is really nice, and I think it gives it a really nice aesthetic. I love the baton markers with the triangle at 12. I think they've done this really well. I'll put a lume shot in here in just a minute so you can kind of see, but it's typical Orient lume. It's really good. I don't think it's quite as good as some of the Seikos, the SKXs, the Tunas, but it's bright and it lasts a long time. The markers are applied. As you can see, they have a little bit of silver, and it's not real silver, but the silver outlining, I think it makes it look nice. They're applied very well, very evenly. I do like the Orient logo, and I think Orient does a good job with their branding. It's not in your face. It's not crazy. It just has the Orient logo that you'll see on every Orient watch, and then it says water resistant 200M down at the bottom to let you know it's a 200 meter water resistant watch. All in all, I think the aesthetic is done very well. And it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to kind of see if I can get some light here. It's kind of tough here in my office. There's a slight sunburst pattern to the dial that when you're outside in the sun, it looks really, really nice. Well done. I think Orient did a great job. Everything about the dial on this watch. So you get a nice coin edge there on the bezel. It's easy to grab onto, not with my Island Watch gloves, but it's easy to hold on to. It's a nice polished sides on the case, and then the top of the case has a nice brushing on it. To me, the fit and finish on this watch is every bit as good, if not of a half step up from the Mako II USA. So there's a shot of the screw down case back with the Orient Wave and the dolphin on the back, and then the typical Epson logo there at the bottom, and just some really fine engraving talking about the watch. Now, one thing you'll notice about my watch here is this is not the bracelet that comes on the watch. And I think the original bracelet, the factory bracelet, is the one downside to this watch. And it's probably why this watch will come in at about $220 instead of more around the $350 to $400 mark. So I'm going to set this aside for a minute, and I'm going to talk about my one complaint with the watch. And that complaint is the bracelet. The bracelet that comes on this watch is okay at best. Okay at best. It does have, as you can see here, it has hollow end links. It has a pressed rather than milled clasp. It does give you 4 micro adjustments. For a pressed clasp, I mean, I've seen worse. To be quite honest, the quality of this pressed clasp is better than my Rolex Submariner 16803, where I can literally almost just barely move it and it'll bend. This one's fairly thick, but it does rattle, and I'm just not a fan of pressed versus milled clasps. But at this price point, I think that's what you can expect. It's double deployant, it's secure. It's got Orient's signature on it there. It's nice. It looks nice. It just doesn't feel the best, and you will get some rattle out of this bracelet. It's brushed, and it looks perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. It is held together just by push pins. You know, what can you say? It's the one negative to this watch. So what I did was I went to Strapcode and bought one of their Super O bracelets, high quality, milled, doesn't rattle a whole lot. It's held together by screws rather than pins. It's double deployant, and it just makes the watch so much better to wear. So I wanted to take just a minute to talk about the crown. It has nice crown guards. They look really nice. The crown is okay. It's not the best. I prefer a larger crown. Like if you take a look at the crown on the Super Ocean, you can see how much larger it is. But this one isn't tiny. It's not a horribly small crown, and it actually has a nice action to it. It's not gritty. It's pretty smooth. As you can see, we'll pull it out to the first stop there, and we can change the day and the date. And as you see, if we pull it out to the second stop, then of course it does hack, which is nice. I'm a little crazy about that. I tend to set my watches to the atomic clock about once a month or so. If they're off, getting close to like being off a minute or something, I'll reset it to the atomic clock. So it's nice to have that hacking. And of course, it hand winds, and the hand winding feels nice. Feels pretty good. Screwing it in. I'm gonna have to pick it up to do that. Screwing it in. There we go. It feels fine. It's okay. You do feel it wind as you screw it in, which is something that I find on a lot of watches in the sub $1,000 range. But all in all, I have to say that at this price point, this probably has to be the best watch out there that you can get. So here's a wrist shot. I do have fairly large wrists, right about 7.5 inches around. And as you can see, it wears fairly well. To me, it wears not much bigger than a 40 millimeter Submariner, but it does wear quite a bit smaller than the Super Ocean 42. It's nice and comfortable. It certainly would fit under a shirt cuff if I'm wearing this with a long sleeve shirt or with a suit. And I tend to wear this watch quite a bit when I have to wear a suit, just because I like the profile of it and I like the look of it. All right, so we'll finish up with a lume shot. So I think the best way to get a good idea of how the lume on this works, I have it fairly dark in here. The problem is my camera cranks up the ISO so that you can still see everything. But once I'm going to put the black light on it, the UV light on it, and once I pull it away while it's focusing, you'll see how bright the lume is. Now, when we get totally focused back in, it'll be a little bit tough to see on camera how bright the lume is, but as it starts to focus back in, you'll see how bright it is. Once we get focused in, it's just as bright when it focuses. It's just that the camera's kicking up the ISO, so it's a bit hard to see. All right, so here we go. All right, so again, the brightness that you were seeing when it started to zoom in is the brightness level that it is still at now. And it stays bright for a couple of minutes, and then it does start to fade over time. I will say that I've hit this with the UV light right before going to bed, and then you can still read the watch in the middle of the night. The lume's very good on it. So I appreciate you hanging around to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was useful for anyone who's looking for an entry-level automatic watch, or if you have some higher-end watches. Not that this Breitling is really, really high-end, but it's, you know, it's costs 10 times as much as the Orient Kamasu. So if you're looking for a weekend beater watch, an automatic watch to wear around when you're working in the yard, when you're doing whatever, and you don't care that it gets banged up and scratched up a little bit, the Orient Kamasu would be great for that as well. I appreciate you guys and gals watching. If you have any questions for me, put them down in the comments. If you've got experience with the Kamasu, let me know what your thoughts of it are down in the comments. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.